Yeah.
Well, guys, let's see now. The Eagles roll into Dallas last Sunday with a 4-9-1 record in the worst division in the history of the National Football League. All they needed was the Giants to lose, and they did. The Skins to lose, or the Washington football team to lose, and they did. And they needed to improve on the good start that they had with a 14-3 lead halfway into the first quarter, like almost going into the second quarter. And then the dikes just leaked out. They were leaking oil like crazy at that point. Jimbo, what happened?
Against a team that can't tackle, the worst tackling team in the NFL, right?
Yep.
They got away from the run game. They got down, and they were pass, and too many stupid penalties.
Yep.
How many times were they offsides? Fundamentals.
Six offsides penalty, three by Pryor, as well as a holding call. And I'll tell you, you think Belichick would put up with something like that?
Nah, he'd throw a phone like he did, or a computer like he did last night.
He would take guys like that out in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And I like Peterson, but my whole thing is the only person he's benched this year has been Wentz. No offensive lineman, no one else. The only guy that's been benched really is Wentz, right?
Well, he really can't bench the linemen because they're all hurt.
That's true.
I mean, he really doesn't have many people left, but he still had an adequate number of guys in there where they could have done something offensively. I mean, that's my opinion. Will, give me your take.
I wasn't surprised at all at the outcome. It's kind of like what we saw all year long. Doug Peterson just doesn't know how to coach. He doesn't know how to use his players. He can't bring out talent in anybody. I mean, all it took was just the Eagles to get down a few points, and there he goes. He just wants to throw the ball every play, get away from the run game, just like Jim said, and I'm not surprised.
Yeah, don't you guys get the feeling that I think I get this feeling that the defenses kind of know after maybe the first couple series what plays are being called, or better yet, they know if it's going to be a run or a pass.
If I can tell it's going to be a run ahead of the play, I'm sure they know.
Yeah, that's what I think that their problem is, and I think that I just get this feeling myself that if Peterson gets behind in a game, he feels like he's got to go for broke right away. Mm-hmm. And I think it's more pressure on his quarterback. And I'm not saying that, I'm not going to absolve Wentz for everything that he did this year because he's a whole different scenario. But I just think that Peterson has really contributed big time to the failings that this football team has had. Forget the injuries, and we can talk about that in a minute. But I just think that he just has not gotten his team ready to play football. And I also, in my opinion, feel like they're very undisciplined, Jim.
Does it go back to him losing, Mike Rowe last year? And he didn't want to lose him. I always go back to that press conference last year where he said his two coaches would be back. And then the next day they're gone like that. Now, whether that was a Lurie decision or a Roseman or what, I personally think Doug wants to get fired. I don't think he wants to be here. I think he's kind of coaching to get fired. I think there's turmoil between him and, the hierarchy over what happened. I mean, he pretty much said it yesterday. He wants to be more involved in personnel decisions. I mean, I read it that he took a shot at Howie. Like, he's like, I would like to be more involved in that. He's like, I want to be, part of the solution.
I get what you're saying too, and I did feel that way as well. But I mean, do we really want him to have more say? He can't. I haven't seen one player since he's been the coach get better at all.
That's a
just
great
name
point.
one. I can't.
Yeah, That's a really, really good point. But let's go back to Roseman real quick, because I'm going to really pinpoint this with you guys. Let's start out this way. Who do you think is the main reason for the failure this year? There's going to be four people. Is it Lurie? Is it Roseman? Is it Peterson? Is it Wentz?
I would go. I'm not a big Howie guy, so I would put him one. But I'm not a big Howie guy, so I blame a lot of it on him. He hasn't drafted well. From what you hear, and we don't know what's true and what's not true. They all wanted Jefferson, and supposedly the Rieger pick was a Howie thing, and whether people are pissed about it or not, it's whether that's the right pick or not. I would have went Jefferson personally, because I think he could play the outside and the inside, and I'm not a big Rieger fan. It seems like Howie wants to always thinks he's the smartest guy in the room instead of making the logical pick.
That's a good point. Well,
I think.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just think the bad drafts that they've had over the past 3 years have caught up to them, and then they won the Super Bowl and they extended everybody, and now we're, in salary cap hell. You got to be more like the Steelers, I think, where you know when to get rid of people, when to pay them, when not. And I just think you need more stability. The most successful organizations, like the Saints, the Steelers, obviously the Patriots, they've had one coach in there for the better part of a decade.
Yeah, I agree. You agree with that, Will? Who's your guy?
I'm actually going to say I think it's Jeffrey Lurie's fault, because he's enabled this for years. I mean, you had Chip Kelly say that Howie Roseman can't draft, and now you're kind of seeing a little bit that Doug Peterson wants a little more say. So that does, put a lot of the blame on Howie, but Jeffrey Lurie hasn't done anything to make a change there either. I mean, he just keeps giving them more and more leadway to make the picks. I think you really got to get somebody else in there. But yeah, I think Jeffrey Lurie is just kind of enabling all this to happen, and it's kind of just a snowball effect on everybody else.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And from what you hear or not, it seemed like, now I don't know what's true and what's not, but they said that Whiteside pick was a Jeffrey Lurie pick because supposedly, Whiteside and his son were friends at Stanford, and they went, with Whiteside. We don't know what's true and what's not. It's just what I've heard that numerous times.
But the one player you think about when you talk about Whiteside in last year's draft is DK Metcalf. Okay, everybody missed on DK Metcalf, and I'll take it a step further. The Eagles drafted Whiteside, I think, 3 or 4 picks before Seattle took Metcalf. But the Arizona Cardinals picked just before Metcalf, and they selected a wide receiver out of the University of Massachusetts, who I never heard of before. I think his name was Isabella, who doesn't even belong in the league. And I think he is a healthy scratch almost every single week. So, and the other thing with Metcalf, because that's what this is all about, Metcalf had a lot of red flags, and the big one was they thought he had a broken neck because he had a neck injury, real bad neck injury. They didn't know if he'd be able to play in the NFL, so that's why he lasted into the 3rd round. Plus, he had very bad hands, and he ran very bad routes at I think it was Mississippi or Mississippi State. So I think a lot of times it's a crapshoot. Now, let's just go back to Roseman for a second, and I'm going to give you my opinion here. There's no way that Roseman, in my opinion, is the guy that looks at these players and says, okay, this guy, I like his 40 time. This guy, I love the way he goes across the field. I love the way this guy stops on a dime. They obviously have scouts.
Yeah.
So nobody really talks much about the scouts. The scouts are the ones that are telling him, and he meets with these guys regularly. And I'm sure it's Zoomcast meetings just like what we're having right now. I'm sure they have discussed it. So I think the problem goes beyond Lurie and Roseman. It's the people that are looking at these players to decide where they're at. So, and I had the list of their drafts, their draft picks last year, and you guys can tell me real quick what you think. Hold on a second, I have them here. I made them up, and you guys can tell me whether you think it was a good pickup or a bad one. Okay, where I put it. Well, anyway, the first pick was Rieger. What do you guys think about the Rieger selection?
You can go first, Will, if you want.
Well, yeah, I'll start off. So I was really excited about the Jalen Reagor pick.
Why?
Really excited. I thought he was very explosive. He's going to be like a big playmaker. I thought he was going to fill in for that Deshaun Jackson type role, especially since he still can't get on the field after 2 years. But honestly, he hasn't been showing me much of anything either. It doesn't seem like he's getting as much separation. But then again, Doug Peterson isn't letting him run Deshaun Jackson type routes. It took till three games ago we're actually getting him running down the field or even doing end arounds on like sweeps. Either it's Doug Peterson doesn't know how to use his players, or as soon as they get to Philly, they just don't know how to play anymore. There's something wrong.
Yeah.
No, because Sidney Jones looks like he can play now. Aguilar's making plays.
Aguilar is a stud now.
Yeah,
he is a stud now, and I've been saying it for years that he was going to be a really good player. We get rid of him, and look what happens.
Guys, I got to tell you something. He had no hands when he was here in Philadelphia. I can't tell you how many passes he dropped. Real quick, guys, I'm just going to let in the fourth guy in our group, the Big V, not to be confused with Vaitai, who we certainly could have used this year in that offensive line. But Vaitai, you like to chime in here? What do you think about Rieger pick?
Initially, I thought the same way. They needed a speedster, but he doesn't have the body, and he's so small. Mm-hmm. I don't know how long he can last in this league. I mean, even if he plays maybe a year or two, and that's it. I mean, Deshaun is like a unique guy, and even now he looks really, home run, guy. But Rieger, I mean, initially I was buying the story that they were telling us that they need speedsters, but he doesn't have the body. He looks so small. I mean, I don't know how long.
That's the thing with all the wide receivers that they drafted, and we'll get into them in a second. I agree 100%.
He's already got 3 injuries already this year. The season's not even over. Still got another game.
Well, listen, I'm going to tell you guys an interesting story. My accountant, his son is a sophomore at what's the school that he going to? TCU. I think he went to TCU, and he actually saw him a couple times in person. And he watched him on TV. He was so upset that they selected him because he told me, he says, he does not play 100% of the time. He drops passes. He's got a very big skill set, but he just gets lost in action a lot of times. He was so upset that they didn't get Jefferson with that pick. And Jefferson now looks
so was I.
Yeah, Jefferson right now looks like he's going to be wearing a gold jacket in about 15 years.
I remember watching the draft and be like, oh my God, we're going to get Jefferson. And then they take Rieger. I was just like, wow. Like, what do they know that we don't know? Like I said, it just seems like sometimes they think they can outsmart everyone instead of making the obvious pick. And everybody probably saw the video of the Vikings, war room when the Eagles picked Rieger. They were jumping for joy. They're like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, we were going to trade back, 2 spots and take a safety.
Yeah, no, I agree. Real quick, let's segue into the second pick with, obviously it was Jalen Hurts, a surprise to everybody. So I guess I'll start it off, Jimmy, with, what you think of his play. And let's include the third game, obviously, the 3 games that he played, and what you thought of the selection in the draft.
Like everybody else, I was shocked. And what it told me personally is they don't believe in Wentz. Like I don't buy into the, he's a cheap backup instead of paying, a backup 5 million, 8 million, whatever it is. But they have so many needs, they could have went elsewhere at that pick, in my opinion. And it told me that they're not sold on Wentz. Now, Hurts has been I'm impressed by Hurts. I didn't think he was going to look as good as he looked. He's quick. He puts the ball right there. And is he the answer? I'm not sold that he's the answer. I still think that Wentz is going to be a really good player in this league, whether it's for the Eagles or for another team.
Now, let's segue into this now, Will. Since we're talking about Hurts, give me your impression of Hurts and just tell me where you think Wentz fits in all this.
Well, for one, I don't think Wentz fits in at all. I mean, once they drafted Hurts and now that they went to him, it's kind of hard to go back after the whole city turned their back on him. But looking at Hurts's play over the last 3 weeks, I am impressed. I'm more impressed than I was. But I don't have the confidence that Doug Peterson as a coach even knows how to use him. And then when Hurts is trying to pass the ball, I see one read. If it's not there, he's running. I mean, how long is he going to last in the NFL? And we've seen Robert Griffin. Lamar Jackson now looks like he's struggling after the defense's kind of game plan on him. I don't think he's the answer in the future. Yeah, I just feel like you got to get a new coach in here and hopefully fix Carson Wentz.
Well, all I want to say about Wentz is I think that Wentz didn't do that in 2017. He was obviously more of a dual threat quarterback, and everything changed once he got injured in that Rams game, and obviously the following year in 18. So with that, I just want to go into this question. This will be for Vahe. Let's say they're both here next year. There's quarterback competition. Wentz wins the quarterback competition. Vahe, in your opinion, how will Wentz be accepted from the fans in Philadelphia game 1 next year?
People have short memories, and if he starts playing well, people will forget. But long term, as we discussed this before with you, Armand, I don't think Wentz can get you a Super Bowl. And even in 2017, maybe he could have gotten you there, but I don't think he would have won the Super Bowl. Because if you look at his work, it makes things happen once he starts scrambling. He's not your traditional quarterback who stays in the pocket and pinpoint accuracy when throwing the ball. And then that was a magical year, 2017. And even if he wasn't injured, I think Bill Belichick would have figured him out. And there was no way they would have, I mean, in my opinion, they would have won the Super Bowl. Because everything about 2017 was basically him. The pocket collapses, and he starts running around and makes unbelievable throws. But eventually people, whether he was injured because of his injuries or whatever, he's not the same person anymore. He's more like into the pocket. And once he's in the pocket, he's not, accurate. And for whatever reason, he's not being productive.
I agree. I think a lot of people are saying that it's two things. It's the knee injury that he suffered in the Rams game. And I think it's also that concussion that he got last year in the Seattle game. I mean, he really took a shot to the back of his head in that game. And in addition to that, there's all this talk out there that he had a concussion history in high school and in college. So, concussions are nothing to laugh about, and concussions have changed people's manner of play. And I think it's possible that it could be a combination of that and maybe all the other things in his maybe there's things in his personal life that he's, thinking about. But the other thing is he got this big contract last year. And when he got all this money, he's now set for life. The first 12 games of the season last year, the 2019, he was horrible. But the last 4, he played really, really good. And he really was a very good quarterback. And everybody was looking forward to the Eagles beating Seattle in the first round of the playoffs, which obviously didn't happen. So, going back to Hurts, I think the real reason why Hurts was drafted was because they were very concerned about Wentz's medical history. I think they're worried if he's going to get hurt. What are we going to do? Put a 40-year-old quarterback in? So I think they wanted to be a quarterback factory, like Roseman keeps saying. This is my opinion of Roseman now. And I think that since they had no vertical threat at the end of the year last year and all their wide receivers were hurt, that he decides to draft all these small, slightly built, fast wide receivers. And so far, nothing has really panned out, except for Hurts, somewhat. So, but I agree with everything that everybody's saying. Let's just finish out this the draft, because since we're talking about Roseman. The third round pick was Davion Taylor, who people may or may not know who he is. He was a linebacker, came very highly touted out of Colorado. And he did not get a lot of playing time, hurt his MCL. He's out for the season. And I think that happened maybe midway through the season. The thing that really worried me about him was that when Jerry went down, they went to the guy from Temple before him, Sean Bradley, who was a sixth round pick, before Taylor. And that kind of like had me concerned. I think they could have missed on Taylor too. So yeah, so I'll tell you what, let's talk about the next two picks, and then we'll all talk about them. Then the next pick was Kayvon Wallace out of Clemson, who was a great player when he played in the ACC last year. I thought he was going to be a player. He just looks lost out there, and he's a safety, and they put all the other safeties in before him, and he still looks like he doesn't really know what's going on. Jimmy, what's your thoughts on those two picks, Taylor and Wallace?
They could be two huge misses in the third and fourth round. I'm not sold on either one of them, and both picks were head scratchers to me. Like, I mean, you're in the NFL, your third or fourth round picks, they got to be impact players, in my opinion. They can't be projects. They seem like projects to me, in other words.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, you have the same feeling, or?
Yeah, I think they're both project guys. Davion Taylor is a little undersized.
Yes.
And they said he's raw coming out. I don't think he played in high school, so he's kind of probably still picking up the game. That's probably why they went with the Temple kid. But on Wallace, he played at a very high level in college. And then I start thinking about, I mean, I hate to be negative all the time, but what corner or safety has come to the Eagles in the last 2 years and hasn't gotten destroyed? Like, maybe it's Jim Schwartz's defense. I don't know. But Darius Slay now is all of a sudden is getting burnt and toasted all up and down the field. So I don't want to, throw Wallace under maybe a bust yet. He's still new. Give him another year.
Yeah, I think he's projected more as a free safety, I think, at the next level, at this level. So, but to me, he seems like he's behind once again. Again behind the eight ball. Vahe, here's a good one for you now. In the fifth round, the Eagles ended up. I'm going to move to the fifth round. In the Eagles had three fourth round picks. The second pick was Jack Driscoll, who was a very good pick, and I like him as an offensive tackle, and I think he will be a very serviceable guard/tackle for years to come. But this is where I think it gets a little hairy, and Vahe, you can give me your opinion on this. The Eagles didn't have a fifth round pick, and what Dallas did was that they moved up and they traded their fifth round pick to the Eagles, and the Eagles got a 5, and their 5 and Dallas's 5, and then Dallas's 5 for next year. Before the Eagles selected John Hightower, who in my opinion has no hands, Dallas selected a guy, the starting center, Tyler Byardus, out of Wisconsin, who they think is going to be the starting center for them for years to come, because Frederick, their center for years, retired last year. Give me your opinion here. You got Jason Kelsey, who's 33 years old, has been with this team for years, just throw a scenario at me. Do you think Hightower was the better pick to make? Do you think they shouldn't have made that trade? Do you think they should have went after the center?
Oh, they should have gone after the center, no doubt about it. Because the thing is that even besides that, if you look at their picks, there's no rhyme and reason what they're doing. And it gives you the impression that basically you have a couple of amateurs sitting in a room and just like they have this shiny toy and they're making decisions without having like, understanding of why you're doing what. They always like, before it was discussed, that they try to sound like they're the smartest guy in the room, but in reality, most of their picks, they don't pan out. And so I think they're wrong because they keep saying that Kelsey is going to retire, he's going to retire, he's going to retire. But who's going to be his replacement?
We don't know. Yeah,
Well,
that's a good point.
They don't have like, whatever they do is like, there's no like a rhyme and reason for what they're doing. And everybody looks confused for all the picks they do. And then they think that basically they're smarter than everybody else and somehow it's going to pan out. And it goes back to the original, like the first pick. When they picked Rigger, they said, oh, they need a fast wide receiver for Carson Wentz, right? All the wide receiver that they picked was specifically for Carson Wentz to make his life easy. That was the story they were telling everybody, right?
Right.
And in the second round, they picked Hurst. What are you doing? Are you trying to help Wentz or are you trying to sabotage Wentz? If you think that he's hurt or he's done, why are you picking all these players that's going to help him get better when you think he's shot and you're getting in the second pick with a quarterback? It's like, what are you doing? Are you trying to help Wentz or are you trying to replace Wentz? If you're going to replace Wentz, maybe pick somebody who's going to be like a stud wide receiver that can complement your other quarterback versus a speedster, which is supposed to help Wentz. So, I mean, this is like a pattern goes on and on. Just not one specific pick. It just basically gives you an impression that these people, they don't know what they're doing. They're just doing things. But in reality, they don't know what they're doing. That's my opinion.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, they had the same group of coaches, and well, most of them here in 2007, the main guys, I guess. So if you take Lurie and Roseman and Peterson, and then you can add in Frank Reich and the quarterback coach, John DeFilippo, who I still think had a lot to do with the development of Wentz. But here's an interesting thing, and I'm going to bring this up about Roseman and his defense. A lot of people, like, all they're talking about are all the injuries that the team has had. And I had the list of the people that are out for the year here, and it's quite a list. But in 2017, they also had a lot of injuries. It was that next man up thing. That's all that he talked about was next man up. And every guy, it's almost seemed like that team hit lightning in the bottle that year. But I'm going to tell you something that's interesting, and this is where Roseman needs to get some credit. One thing that this team does not have is they don't have a stable of running backs. The only running back that really even ever gets the ball is Miles Sanders, and there's no room for anybody else to even get the ball because they don't even run the ball. He doesn't run the ball more than 13, 14 times a game. But this is very interesting. In 2017, Roseman signed. He had Corey Clement came in as a rookie, and then he signs LeGarrette Blount at the beginning of the year. Great signing, lasted all year, always healthy, always in shape. And then one of the best moves he could have made, and he only needed him for half a year, was Jay Ajayi, who came in halfway through the year. He was unbelievable. That, the short time that he played, they basically got him for like a 5th round pick, I think. So now they had a stable of running backs that year. So Roseman's the one that got those 3. Not to mention, he signed Nick Foles again, and they needed Foles in that last game. He signed 2 wide receivers, Alshon Jeffrey and Torrey Smith. Jeffrey had an incredible year in 17, and that's still the reason why they gave him all the money at the end of the game, obviously. Torrey Smith did really good in the playoffs. Let's not forget, defensively, Ronald Darby, who was really a very shaky D-back, but he had a very, very good year that year. And I think one of the unsung one of the unsung free agent signings that nobody talks about that he got was Patrick Robinson, who was probably the best nickel corner in the NFL. He came through big time in the playoffs for that team. So there are major free agent signings that he did, that he was responsible for, that made that team so much better. So I think maybe Roseman started to feel his oats, if you guys can agree or disagree with
Yeah.
me.
We forgot about Chris Long, too.
Right. I
Yeah.
forgot about him. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
he was a huge locker room guy. They just had, it seemed like they had that team chemistry, like you said. That next man up mentality, us against the world.
oh, absolutely. So, I mean, I think that, I mean, he definitely deserves credit for that. Now, let's go into this real quick. Is he here next year or is he gone? Carson
I think
Wentz.
he's here.
No. Now I'm gonna go down the line here. Vahe, Carson Wentz.
It depends how well Hurst plays next game.
One game, huh?
Yeah, and the thing is that $100 million is a lot of money, even for a billionaire.
Yeah, let's make this one quick because I got a number of players here. Will Wentz.
I think he's here just based on the money. I mean, I think you gotta come in and try to fix him. You can't afford to just let him go. And I mean, that's a lot of money. The money speaks for itself.
Yeah, well, they're going to take if it's a $34 million hit if they let him go. Jimmy?
I think he's here because of the money.
Yeah, so we all think
I
he's here.
really do.
All
It's a
right.
lot.
Vahe, Jason Peters.
Oh my God. he's done. He's been done for the last 2 years.
Does anybody here think he's going to be here next year?
He's gonna be here,
He'll be a coach.
coaching on the sideline.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Glory. Okay. Matt Pryor. Vahe.
He should be on the bench.
Well, no, but do you think he'll be on this team?
Isn't he a rookie?
No, second year.
Probably on the team, but not starting.
Yeah. What do you other guys think?
I think he's gonna be here just because we have no depth. We need him.
Yeah, bench guy, depth guy.
I think he's going to get cut if all the other linemen are healthy at the end of training camp, and they'll try to, put him on the practice squad.
And then they'll sign him back week 2 when half the offensive line is injured.
That's a good point. All right, here's a good one. Jake Elliott, Vahe.
Oh, cut it. Well, you know what? He's not the only one who's struggling. Everybody else is struggling too. So I don't know, man. So probably stays on the team.
What do you guys think?
I
Well,
think he's gone.
Yeah, I think he's gone too, even though we just paid him a lot of money too. But
I agree. I think he's going to go because he cannot hit short field goals.
Right.
he can't even hit long ones now, and that's all he was good for before. Now he's nothing.
Although he did punt pretty good in the Cardinals game. I'll give him that. Corey Clement, Vahe.
He's a special teamer.
Yeah.
He's on the team.
Yeah, I think he stays too, considering we don't run the ball anyway. I mean, he'll be a special teamer. He can be the second string running back. It's not really going to matter because we don't run the ball enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure about Clement. Jimmy, what about Jason Hargrave?
I think he's here. I think he's here again. It's a money thing. He's making good money, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, aren't they over the cap? Don't they have to get rid of a lot of the big?
Yeah, well, that's going to be the next guy we bring up that plays his position also. So let's go do him and Malik Jackson. So they're both interchangeable. They both make over $10 million. But let me just say this. Jackson's 30. Jason Hargrave is 27 years old. So out of the two, do you think one of them's going to go? Who do you think it's going to be?
I think Malik goes.
Yeah, Malik Jackson is definitely going.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that too. Alshon, I guess a given.
He's gone.
Because he got 3 catches all year. What about Deshaun Jackson?
Gone.
On.
I'm
He's
going to
out.
go out on a limb, and I'm going to say that he will sign for nowhere near what what he made. It might be maybe $5 million, and be a 35-year-old speedster who may be able to play 3/4 of the games. If the other wide receivers, put it this way, if you're going to depend on Jalen, in my opinion, you're going to depend on Jalen Reagor to be your vertical threat, I would keep my ears open to keeping Jackson maybe one more year, because I'm not so sure that he's the answer. So you guys think that Jackson's gone and Jeffries is gone, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's say real quick, special teams, Dave Phipp. I really take a lot into special teams. Do you think that the special teams has been a problem? And why are they a problem? Because I have my own opinion on that. And do you think he is possibly a guy that maybe is looking ahead of himself to maybe be a head coach somewhere? Because he's been with this team for about 8 years now.
I'll start off. I think, see, the problem that I don't understand is, I mean, it seems like we're not generating any yards on like punt returns or kick returns. I don't know if we're using the wrong personnel. I don't understand why we had Boston Scott back there when Jalen Reagor was great in college at returning punts. And we saw it one game. He took one back for 6, and then you never seen him again. I don't know if it's because we're afraid that he's going to get hurt again because he's already been hurt 3 times this year.
Yeah.
But I just don't understand the personnel decisions. That's my point.
Fahe, what do you think about special teams? Do you think it's a problem? Do you think it's something that they're okay with?
I think it's both things. I think it's coaching and players too. Boston Scott, I mean, he can't run. Every time he catches the ball on the 1-yard line, he ends up getting like maybe 10, 15-yard line, and that's it.
He looks so slow.
Yeah. You let the ball go into the end zone so you can get it at the 5-yard line. It's much better that all that moving he's doing and get you maximum to the 20-yard line, and that's it. Other day he fumbled the ball too, by the way. Remember?
Yeah, he did. He did, and he's lucky it wasn't returned. But Jimmy, does he belong on this team next year? He's the backup running back, hasn't done anything. He hasn't done anything returning punts.
Then he's taking up a roster spot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, special teams is a huge, huge issue, I think. I don't mean to bring up Andy Reid, but we were always had good special teams with him. And it can win or lose you games like anything else. And it's cost him games more than it's won him games in the last few years.
Yeah.
And like Will was saying, is Reagor hurt and we don't know about it? Do they want to protect him? He goes back there once and he returns it. And then we got Ward back there, fair catching everything.
That was probably the most exciting play all season from the Eagles, and then we never seen it again.
Right. It brought them right back in the game. Where are they down? Like 5, I can't remember, 5 points or something after that? It changed. Special teams can change a game around. Look at all the stuff B. Mitch used to do back in the day. Look at Deshaun did. Look at Westbrook did.
Teams used to be afraid to kick to them.
Brian Mitchell's not a dime a dozen these days. But I will tell you this about Dave Phipp. If you look at his production, he had this team as top 10. In fact, top 5 a couple years when the 2 years that he was under Chip Kelly. And I think he came with Kelly. But then he's dropped since then. I don't even think he's top 20 this year. And he has not been top 10 since 2017. So he's gone back a little bit further. But on the other hand, he's had so many injuries to deal with that a lot of the guys that were playing special teams are now in the lineup, and now he's got to have other guys play special teams. So do we give him, do we give him a break on this one? But then again, in 2017, they had a lot of injuries, and the special teams were great. So, Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And I think that, I'm shocked that even Jackson hasn't gotten punt returns. Like Jackson and Rieger, I just don't understand. Why is Greg Ward getting punts all the
Yeah.
time? You know?
How
Yeah.
I just don't get that.
how
So,
about Hightower? He's supposed to be a speedster. Or Quez Watkins. Why can't they return the ball?
Quez Watkins, yes, but Hightower scares me because he doesn't have hands. But I will tell you, Quez Watkins, I mean, you talk about slightly built. He is really little, Watkins. I mean, he's got great speed, but he needs to put on a little bit of muscle next year. And I know he's had a couple of good games, but I also think it's possible that the other teams in the league really don't know much about him right now. So once they get to know what his, you know, what he's good at and what he's not so good at, I think that they'll work on that. So a lot of it depends on what happens the second year when he's here his second year. But real quick, I want to go into the injuries. You gotta see this list. The following, tell me, and I want to ask you guys a question on this. I want this addressed. The following are out for the year: Andre Dillard, Jack Driscoll, Nathan Jerry, Craig James, Lane Johnson, Cravon LeBlanc, Avonte Maddox, Rodney McLeod. I'd like to talk to him about him in a second. Sua Apoa, Josh Perkins, the backup tight end, Kayvon Seymour, who I do like, Josh Sweat, Davion Taylor, Brandon Brooks. Jimmy, do you think that maybe the training staff is partially responsible for this? And is it me, or is it every year it seems like this team gets these devastating injuries?
Right. I agree. Did we just hire like new doctors and a new training staff a couple of years ago? And it's the same thing. Like it's amazing. It's like every single year. But on the flip side, though, we're the only team in the NFC East who didn't lose their quarterback to injury, and we're still in last place.
Well, that's interesting, Vahe, because if you listen to, I don't know if you heard Peterson's press conference, the one that he had on Monday. He was really starting to make excuses, saying, well, we had a lot of injuries, and he wants to know, and, you know, this team has won a championship, and they went to the playoffs 3 years in a row. And you and I both know it's what have you done for me lately in this. But talk about, like, what do you think about his excuse for the injuries? And let's compare it to the rest of the NFC East.
He's acting, but he's scared he's going to get fired. Everything he's doing lately is like that. Even his coaching, you can't tell. It's basically his coaching scared. Sometimes go for the fourth down, goes for a punt. I mean, some of the plays that he's calling, it doesn't really make sense. And you can sense the guy's under tremendous stress that, you know, he's afraid he's going to get fired. So he's making decisions that, you know, it doesn't make sense sometimes. And this is the way that basically coming to the end. And he feels that he could get fired. So he's trying to come up with excuses just to hold on to his job.
But I got to tell you something. He went to the playoffs 3 years in a row. He won the Super Bowl in 2017. And I'm telling you, it's true as I'm sitting here. I was sitting on that couch over there in 2017 when they were playing the Patriots. And it was the play before the next to last play of the Super Bowl. Now, mind you, let me just back up. I am 64 years old. I had season tickets in the 700 level at the Vet for many years. I can't even begin to tell you how many fights I got in because the team just absolutely sucked in fourth quarters. If I see Ron Jaworski get sacked by Lawrence Taylor one more time, I think I'm going to jump out the window. When I was sitting on that couch, I said to everybody here, if the Eagles win this game, I don't care if Peterson doesn't win a game for the next 3 years. He has the key to this city.
How do you feel
I
now?
will bet that all three of you guys felt the same way.
No, one thing I'm really surprised at, Armand, is basically he shouldn't be coaching scared. I mean, you have a Super Bowl. You're the only guy who won a Super Bowl for the Eagles. You've been in the playoffs for the last 3 years. You should be coaching like Even if you're going to get fired, you should be auditioning for the next team. Somebody who's in control. Somebody's not afraid to make decisions. But right now, the way he's acting scared. So even if he gets fired, the next team's going to look at him and says, look at this guy. When he was stressed, he couldn't do nothing. So he's doing disservice to himself too, that regardless of what happens here for the next job, he's not doing a good auditioning for it. Because the way he's acting, excuses, the plays that he's calling. Like the other day, there was like a 4th and 10, right? Or 4th and 15.
15.
He went for it. And then another play before that, they could have kicked the field goal. He punted. I mean, it doesn't make sense what he's doing. And I mean, other people are watching the same thing and they're saying, wait a minute, maybe this guy cannot really handle the stress. If things are going well, yeah, he can do well. But the thing is that when things are not going well, how is he behaving? And he's not really doing a good job for himself.
I agree. Hey, Jimmy, remember that when he was first hired, Mike Lombardi, the guy from the NFL Network, wrote that story. And then they win the Super Bowl and he had to make an apology.
Yeah.
Maybe there was something that guy really didn't know.
Maybe, I like Peterson. I think he's a good coach, as stupid as that sounds, but maybe, Frank Wright, being over his shoulder, maybe that's the reason why we won the Super Bowl and he made up for all Doug's faults. And we're finding out now.
No, I agree 100%.
And supposedly, Frank Wright and Carson Wentz were, very close. They had the same religious beliefs, and they're just, on point with one another. That's why all these rumors are coming up now that he could end up in Indianapolis with them.
Well, Rivers is what, 41 years old?
So he's dead up there.
Yeah, I mean that's quite possible. I know that, and I don't know. We'll end it with a couple things here. I don't really know what Press Taylor's job is with this team. He's supposedly quarterback coach / play caller / he's in Peterson's ear because he's given him some plays that he does. But on the other hand, it's very widely known that the relationship between him and Wentz was nothing like the relationship that him and DiFilippo had a couple of years ago. I think that this team, well, let me just put it to you this way. And Will, you can chime in on this. I just have this feeling that if Peterson does come back, they're going to tell him, we're going to get you a guy that's going to call plays for you. And I also think that guy Dorsey that they just hired as an assistant to Rosen is going to really help make the decisions. What's your feeling on a true play caller next year? And did you like maybe the possibility of maybe DiFilippo coming here in that capacity?
I would love for them to get somebody here to call plays. The problem is I don't think Doug Peterson will be okay with that. I think if Jeffrey Lurie tells them that, you got to get somebody in here to call plays and alleviate that position from him, I think he's going to want out. I think he likes calling plays. I think he does a horrible job at it. As Vahe said, I mean, let's just go back to that, what was it, 4th and 15. They could have kicked a 52-yard field goal or something. Instead, they tried to go for it. The percentage of making that play, you're probably not going to get it. And if you're short, what's it going to be, like a 10-yard difference when you could have just tried to kick the field goal and get 3 points? If you missed the field goal, you're only giving up maybe 10 yards. But yeah, I think somebody, I would like somebody to come in here if Doug Peterson is staying here, but I'd rather just get Doug Peterson out of the building.
Wow, boy, that's amazing. I don't think it's going to happen because he had 3 years as a playoff team. All right, let's end it on this, guys. The Eagles are going to be drafting. It could be anywhere from 4 to 10. It looks like in the draft. So. I guess we'll start with Vahe. A particular position that you would go after, or for the first pick, or would you really want the best player available?
either a stud wide receiver or stud running back. They don't have a running back right now. Miles Sanders is not your stud running back.
DeAndre Swift was available last year and we didn't get him.
Yep. You need a running back. I mean, that's one thing that's missing from this team. They don't have a
Jimmy, what do you think?
Do they go receiver again and get Devontae Smith from Alabama? Like,
Oh my God, that
Dude,
guy
yes.
is
do they do that?
dude.
Like, but you know what they're going to do? They're going to screw everything up and win Sunday and go to like 10
Yeah,
when they should just lose.
yeah. And
And
Peterson's going to
be
pull all the
top five.
stops out. Yeah.
But Devontae Smith, like,
Oh my God, that guy. I'm telling you something. That guy is better than Ruggs,
he's
and
a
I think
stud.
he is unbelievable.
Yep.
I think if he's available, I would really have to think long and hard. Well, I'll leave it with you. What would you do?
I 100% want to get a wide receiver just because I don't have any faith in the guy we drafted last year, and I want that guy Devontae. What is it? Devontae Smith, Alabama
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah,
He's
Smith.
he's very, very good, but with Howie Roseman making the picks, we'll probably end up with somebody from Boston College.
or
Okay.
North Dakota State
North Dakota State.
North Dakota State. Yeah.
to help Wentz out.
He's the fastest guy in the snow. For God's sake.
He's cousin somewhere, you know.
We're gonna
Yeah.
bring Donnell Pumphrey back to play wide receiver.
Yeah, that's right. All right, guys. With that, we'll wrap it up for the We Eat, Sleep, and Drink Eagles football. Until then, we'll see you next week, guys.